Her mission is simple: to bludgeon the devils with her iron axe until all evils are removed from the earth. Oh, what's happening, fellas? It's your boy Hardcorn, and today we're reviewing Yatsu Murasaki. We'll be taking a look at how she stacks up mechanically, and also if she's really worth the effort of spending your gems. And let me tell ya, you'll fall in love twice with her. Once with the strength, and twice with the utility. Now let's get started. Murasaki has been with the series since the early days. She's almost always featured in some sort of way. Whether that be an appearance as a teacher, as a ninja on a mission, or having unspeakable horrors applied to her person. Amazingly enough, she gets her own game, Taimanin Murasaki, before soccer of all people. Though in said game, Ingrid also makes her first appearance and is overshadowed by her just by being hotter. I mean, she is a flame knight after all. Anyways, Murasaki's a real fan favorite, a long-time mainstay that never really seems to go away. She just gets progressively better in the shadows where criticism isn't so apparent. This sort of long-lasting flavor transfers well to the gameplay side, as she's diamond tough and you're going to need more than just a few soldiers to put down this one. She's a sort of undying force, if you will. She's known as the Undying due to her signature ability, Awakened Immortal. It gives off incredibly powerful regeneration abilities. Only if her heart and brain are destroyed within moments of each other, she will die. When villains get a hold of this knowledge, that her cells can regrow and regenerate like this, they tend to send all they have to capture her and extract her DNA. With that, she's going to fight like the dickens to make sure she doesn't get captured, and also so that such power will not fall into villainous hands. So she uses her incredible power to defend herself. Not only does she have regeneration, her ability gives her incredible strength. I mean, this girl curls 300 kilos no problem, and she swings around a giant battle axe without a care. Hand-to-hand combat is no problem to her in terms of raw strength, and her weaponry is unparalleled in terms of raw power. She's good. I mean, in fact, she's great. So great, she's hired as a teacher at Gosha Academy and is slated to be the next Asagi. Miss Murasaki as a teacher is the cold and cruel one you and your friends would hope you didn't get when the new school year came around. Then, however, as time went on, you'd realize that she's hard and cold because she wants only the best. Anything less is a failure and is going nowhere. And in her line of work, failure means capture or even death. Through that cold gaze and sharp tongue is a person who is legitimately kind and thoughtful. And it's obvious through her interactions with Asagi, she can care and be kind, albeit to a fault in regards to Asagi. Murasaki the girl simp, who would have thought? She hates it when people dote on her, yet will do it to Asagi. I mean, talk about a double standard there, girl. Even your brother can see that's not right. Onwards to the real meat, the gameplay portion. Murasaki is not safe from the tropes of being an axe user. Her swings are slow, but deal a lot of damage. But the axe in herself can move as fast as the moments need to, in a thematic sense. But her lack of speed means super low hit counts outside of a few scenarios. Each hit, however, delivers reckoning like no other. She shreds through HP like nobody's business. I mean, the low hit count though also means she's less likely to hit the 30 hit combo stipulation on some of these missions. Doable, but it takes a kernel of planning to accomplish. Murasaki has average stats but above average abilities. She's the game's premier defensive character and is built to survive, thrive, and make sure her attacks complete. The most immediate thing to note with her usage is that her attacks get super armor. It's obviously to offset her poor speed on her attacks so that they can complete. This is an absolute godsend, since it means that small attacks and stray bullets won't interrupt her. Murasaki, being an axe user, gives incredible hits done with each and every hit. Every whack just hacks off enemy armor meter and just keeps her going and going. To top it all off, her basic attack string has an enormous swing radius. Looks almost something like 200 degrees per slash. Natural born AoE champion over here for sure. Not only that, each part of her attack string will chase the enemy. It's a small but very important factor to note, as it offsets her slow swings so enemies can't walk right out of it. That, or the initial strike of the axe knocking them back, and the follow-up attack whiffing since it's too slow. Just having a chasing attack, in general, just is so very good. There's something really special about Murasaki, and that's the fact she's got insane amounts of healing. Many of her skills have built-in healing in some way, and have high scaling. Most other characters have a weak heal or an unsafe heal, or no healing at all. Murasaki is where all the good heals went to. Survival is the key feature with her, and with proper play you'll never get to critical HP, or maybe not even below 50%. For example, she has a skill that has high damage and also a high scaling heal. I've seen this thing get up to 1500 plus HP to recover, unboosted. Then she's got other smaller heals to recover from the skirmishes, or to recover from a trade. Gotta note though, she's the greatest beneficiary of healing supporters, but I'll get to there later. Let's find out about these so-called skills. We'll start off with what I consider to be her core skills. They'll be core due to that they hit the most criteria of giving a useful buff, debuffing enemies, deal great damage, or have some sort of utility. Tentacle Mine is hands down her best skill. By default, it gives an incredibly powerful slow to all enemies within the activation radius, and this radius is just huge. It only gets better the more investment you put into it. It's a green skill, and it demands all 3 slots to have one. Setting 1 gives a 15% speed buff to Murasaki, 2 increases the duration by 150%, and 3 reduces opponent defense by 75%. That duration increase also reflects on the debuffs too, so the slow and defense down lasts for ages. Murasaki also gets that sweet speed buff so she can take full advantage of that defense down. That 150% duration increase is unheard of in other characters. It almost feels like good old Mu-chan is the dev team's favorite, along with another character. The cooldown for it after skill training ends up being like 9 seconds, and the buff and debuff with the supporters lasts 13 seconds. Chaining is possible, but difficult. But 13 seconds for a defense down is just unheard of. On a 9-second cooldown, you can't beat it. Murasaki keeps chaos in check with this skill, and even the unbuffed slow is enormous. Don't you dare miss out on such a safety there, matey. Tentacle Anchor is her gap closer. With a quick double dash, she shoots it in the direction of her enemy, and it pulls her to them. On a base 6-second cooldown, it's going to be usable just about any time. The supporter passives is what makes this. Main green gives a strong slow, blue gives a 25% defense buff, and red gives an attack when Murasaki meets the enemy. The green slow is what makes this so desirable. The slow is just incredibly strong. It's something like an 80% slow for 4 seconds. With the cooldown reduction in skill training, this skill can go as low as 4.2 seconds for cooldown. So it really can be chained. You can cheese an enemy and ship them down, and they can't really do anything about it. Red is pretty crazy since it gives a big uppercut to knock up smaller enemies, but it also gives an unlisted attack buff. It's all about getting her in there and start tearing a number as quickly as possible. Use Anchor, get that buff, and whip out one of those big power moves to DPS all day. It's a fantastic skill that you won't want to leave home without. Greataxe Senpu falls into the core due to it having such strong utility and damage. Just dodge and then press attack to have Murasaki torpedo herself into an enemy and blow off half their HP or do some substantial damage. 3 greens restores HP by 5% of the given damage, 3 blues makes it so that the attack continuously spins for a moment to hit several times, and 3 reds increases the defense by 30% for 10 seconds. Now other skills can heal, but they have Murasaki do some sort of second-long recovery and turn an HP gain into a net 0 or loss. I don't like that at all. Senpu will always hit the enemy, give hit stun, and go through them to get Murasaki out of the way. To top it all off, the recovery is relatively short, so it keeps her mobile, because she's receiving a lot of her damage when she's getting attacked or doing big channel DPS moves. Mobility and means to accomplish is important for characters who have slow setups. I mean, I'll admit my bias towards the green, but whenever I see Murasaki recover 6,000 HP unboosted off of a 120,000 crit, I can't help it. That is a substantial amount of HP on such a short cooldown, and it makes everything else look bad. I mean, red and blue really gotta step their game up. Fushi no Jin is what all great counters strive for. I'll say it, it's Dante's Royal Guard but much easier to accomplish. You just hold dodge, wait for a hit, and watch that Royal Release AoE just floor everyone. It does a substantial amount of damage, and to top it all off, it heals by default. The healing scales with damage too. It's a low scaling, I think it's like 2 or 3%, but the hits are so powerful you recover a lot of HP to offset taking the damage to activate. 2 greens increase the AoE by 80%, 2 blues reduce the damage taken by 30% more during the guard, and 2 reds increase the counter's damage by 80%. These are all very useful passes on a skill that is already very strong. The blast knocks down smaller enemies and eviscerates large enemy armor bars. It's perfect for farming since after a certain point it will kill smaller enemies in one hit or injure them so much they'll die to a basic attack. Sadly, it isn't on a HP recovery system like Emily's Gravity Hold, where each enemy struck will recover HP. The first enemy it hits will be what it bases the recovery on. The rest of the travel on the wave is just to damage everyone else. Green's boost to the AoE size makes it a farmer, while Red's enormous boost to damage means you can actually just main the skill and start chunking life off of whatever you're facing. With any form of this attack though, it's good to remember that this is a risk-reward move. 1v1 it's invaluable, but if there's friends who can stand up to the blast, well, there's going to be some trouble. That'll do it for core skills. Now on to the rest for flex picks. Now this one is called Taimanin Art, but it's her uppercut into Helm Splitter attack. However, this one doesn't fall into the same traps that the other versions of this attack have. This version is a finisher. It cuts out all the other stuff like having to hold in the middle of a combo to accomplish. Oh no, this one you hold the attack button at the end of the basic string to do an uppercut and do an immediate Helm Splitter. Thanks to Murasaki's axe having a planet-sized hitbox, you can sometimes hit more than one enemy and possibly pick them up too. No aerial raves, no judgment cuts, just up then down. That's all I could ever ask for. Being a starter skill, it's just set one of each color to do basic things like cooldown reduction, damage increase, but you can also add knockdown to the attack when you come on down. Then there's the question of actually using it, and it's truly the flex pick. You pick your cores and then you get an open slot, so you can take this and do no wrong. With Greataxe Issen, Murasaki is bringing down her axe to deal enormous damage to a very small area in front of her. With 2 greens, this move's critical hit rate is increased by 50%, 2 blues restores HP by 3% of the given damage, 2 reds has Murasaki spin forward to deal more damage, then finish with the pounding hit. Now this move requires some setup because of the long windup and recovery, so you'd want to do this move after the Tentacle Mine hits, or using a supporter that has some sort of an immobilization property. 3% HP recovery is nothing to scoff at because it is a form of recovery on a fast cooldown. It requires blue investment, and when you're 2 blues already in, this is your only heal besides the counter. It's a use your head attack because using this skill willy-nilly will leave you taking more damage than you've recovered, mostly because there's no damage reduction during the cast or any defense buffs. Now the red has her spinning forward like one of those demon dogs into the big hit. It gives her added protection on the back since it's a vertical spin, which is very welcome. Think about how you've got things set up on her already, because if you want to take this skill, you better be ready to baby it. Greataxe Rengeki, that's rad. Murasaki sweeps the leg all Cobra Kai and then mauls them while they're on the ground for a boatload of damage. It's a fun skill and not so much practical, but I have a great time when I use it. It's her all red skill, so with 1, damage taken is reduced by 50% while active, 2 adds 2 more smashes, and 3 increases the damage by 150%. These multiple smashing slashes come out as fast as you can press that button until you hit the limit, so you don't need to worry about them getting up if you keep fanning that hammer. Armor and HP just fall off in chunks and it's a sight to see. However, she's got to channel this attack, so you need to hold the group in place for max damage or the singular enemy you want to take out. This is somewhere Tentacle Mine, Tentacle Hold, and all those others really shine. Now the attack itself has that initial sweep to knock over the enemies, but not every enemy is going to be in front. I don't want a greater demon to walk over during my attack to give me a haymaker and break me out of it. Don't think that just because it has a built-in utility doesn't mean you can stop thinking. Surviving hard encounters is just as much about brute strength as it is to knowing about when to run away. Now this is her real Taimanin Art, Igawa style Omo-no-Kata. Slower characters love charging attacks, and now Murasaki gets to join the club. This enhances her basic attack string and gives a 2-stage optional charge to hit on series 2 and 3. These charged hits do more damage and even have a bonus against super armor. Now they're a little bit of a bear to use, but with some practice you can really start weaving level 1 and 2 charges into your strings more frequently. This skill also gives a 40% reduction in damage taken during the normal attack and a 50% gain in particle charge. That 40% reduction is just fantastic. It's built to have Murasaki trade with enemies and packs and then go in real deep. The protection while charging is a godsend and allows for more risky strategy of laying down more charged attacks in dangerous areas. However, it doesn't make you invincible, but you sure will feel that way. You may think it's clunky at first, but when you nail that level 2 on the 3rd series of hits, you'll think a little differently. Now I'll try spinning. That's a good trick. Greataxe Setsuga has Murasaki take a page from Sakura's book and have a severely damaging spin attack. I mean, look at these twinsies. Their spinning skills are both blue. In Murasaki's case, 1 knocks the enemy back on hit, 2 adds 3 more spins, and 3 increases crit damage by 250%. Damage scaling is low for the spin until the final slash, but the actual size of the vortex is huge, and it'll sweep up nearly the whole pack for a gigantic amount of damage. Sadly, Murasaki doesn't get the leisure of being able to teleport to the next enemy like Sakura does, or have it instantly cast. Murasaki has to have a slight bit of acceleration to get her heavy axe to start spinning. It's not that long, but it's a nice touch to really get that feeling of weight. I mean, it is hard to tell since she shakes it around like it's nothing, but I really love it when characters get continuous spin skills because they're always big shredders in groups and feel really satisfying to use. Like, I actually felt like I just hurt these fools. Murasaki's spin is no exception. Unfortunately, there is no damage reduction with it, but since it's the deep blue skill, damage reduction buffs are most likely up before using the skill. Tentacle Hold is her 81 skill. By pressing dash twice, she fires off a cone of tentacles in front of her to deal minimal damage. Damage is not a concern with this attack. What it really is for is applying buffs, debuffs, and healing. It's also for applying the coveted groggy status. It's the best setup next to Tentacle Mine. If you set 2 of any supporter, you get the groggy effect when you land the hit, along with whatever your supporter setup is. 2 greens heals 3% of damage done, 2 blues reduces enemy speed by 20% for 10 seconds, and 2 reds reduces damage taken by 20% for 10 seconds. They're all very strong and fit in just about anywhere. However, it's locked behind a trudge of very expensive and rare resources, but as time goes on that will change. Just know that in the now, you can use this skill to set up those big slow attacks. And that's charity, folks. Giving unto others without receiving acknowledgement or reward, but knowing that you've made something better through those efforts. And Tentacle Hold is a very charitable skill. For supporters, let's first think about what we're trying to accomplish with Murasaki and how to supplement it. She wants to immobilize threats, destroy armor, chain breaks, and heal. For immobilization, I like to use supporters that give a sort of stun, and the stun has a wide connotation with me rather than just the generic makes them stand still unable to attack. A stun can be a knock up, knock down, high powered slow, freeze, the list goes on. It's anything I can get a hold of to slow the enemy down, take off some HP, and continue the conquest. So any supporter that has a sort of connotation like that, but with also having all enemies in the description, so it doesn't need to be aimed. Obviously certain stuns and knocks won't work on bosses, so then it turns into a damage from range button. That's okay, cause that's what I pay them for. For armor destruction, I want Murasaki to hit extremely hard in all aspects. All supporters scale off of character damage, so anything that boosts it up is desired. Murasaki is melee, so getting supporters that give her melee boosts are some of the most important. Sadly, these boosts aren't passives you can level up by awakening, they're increased through skill improvement. That means copies after copies. If an event has even a minimal one to boost melee, don't pass it up. The difference in power is immediate, as you'll be going from hitting like a wet noodle to giving meaningful damage. It helps a lot with another aspect, chaining breaks. A break is defined as when the blue armor meter reaches 0 and the enemy reaches groggy state. Well, that's just what I call it since it's a similar situation to a mode bar break in Grand Blue. They're vulnerable, and that's what matters. This sort of groggy state doesn't last too long. Then when it's over, the meter just fills to max instantly and you need to whittle it down again. The breaks are much more noticeable on lower tier enemies and elite enemies. They'll be constantly stunned and they can't do much if the timing works out right. Supporters that do massive amounts of damage on hit are usually single target annihilators. That's perfect for what I want to accomplish. Murasaki already chunks out armor bar with her hits. The single target supports will allow for a huge amount to be ripped off at once. That's perfect for when they break out of groggy and the bar fills back up. If there is no window, you go make it with break chains. Murasaki has several forms of strong healing. To make said healing even stronger creates easier scenarios to come back from. The game has many supporters that increase healing in some way or modify recovery to have more HP coming back to the user. Murasaki's high damage and high heals make for a sort of rich get richer scenario. Greataxe Senpu's healing is already strong, doing a 3000 HP heal as baby numbers. Then you equip a healing supporter and you can see numbers like 8000 to 10,000 health heals. Granted, this is an exaggeration, but big heals on a character built to get constantly hurt is what I like to see. It keeps fights fast and fluid, and most of all, extremely intense. To conclude on Murasaki, she's great. There isn't much in terms of content that will actually stop her. It will be with reasonable difficulty, but not very hard or outright impossible. Armor on her attacks made such a world of difference too, most notably against small arms fire, small enemies, and weaker attacks from bigger enemies. Positively the most lovely thing about her mechanically, even more so than the healing. Now that can't go unannounced either. Incredible returns for such minimal investment, and with the correct supporters, the rich keep getting richer in terms of healing. You're never going to reach critical HP unless something catastrophic happens, and there's flexibility too with the amount of moves that have healing and also the utilities as well. She can do just about everything very well. Would I say she's tops tier? Undeniably so. You could solo just about everything with her, even without damage boosting items. Her heals and just general attacks are that powerful. Then she's got the super full screen slow, and you couldn't ask for a better setup to slow attacks and getting recoveries off. She's obviously not perfect. Being slow means she's also vulnerable a lot of the time. Just because she's got the armor and the planet-sized attacks, doesn't mean she won't be taking tons of damage from the back or the sides. You can go without a healing move, but it actively gimps her playing style, since she is just a lightning rod for abuse and severe damage. If you were to really challenge yourself, you'd take off any healing or slow applicators and see just how she is without them. She's vehemently carried by Mine, Anchor, Setsuga, and Senpu. Take one or more away from her, and she's got a hard life ahead. There probably is a degree of bias inside with the dev team, since not many other characters get such an incredibly strong and easy to use skills like this. I wholeheartedly recommend holding off on her until you have something like a melee damage boost supporter, because she's not a natural DPS machine. Every hit counts, and when they do make a big hit, you'll be counting the bodies left. It does not pay to be a slow character in a fast game like this, but good old Mu-chan makes it work, and she makes it work so very well. Oh lord, wasn't that something? Thanks for coming on out and learning with your boy Hardcorn. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, leave a comment too, because I love to hear from you guys and maybe get some ideas from where to go next. And as always, I'll see you next time.